Happy Monday morning. Welcome into another week of Morning Jox right here on Jox 94.5. Conrad Van Order, Damian Mitchell here with you each and every weekday bright and early at 6 a.m. And man, oh man, it was a weekend, really a Sunday of champions as we had multiple champions crowned across the sports world over the weekend. We have a ton to get into. We have some recruiting news. The final weekend for official visits in college football was this past weekend as well. So much on the docket today, and we are glad that you are here right alongside us. And so we'll start off right there with the weekend of champions as we have another champion here in the Southeastern Conference. And of course, that would be the LSU Bengal Tigers as they won their 8th College World Series championship yesterday with a 5-3 victory over the Coastal Carolina Chanticleers. And the game yesterday had just about everything. You had ejections. You had LSU go out to a big early lead. You had Coastal coming back and making things a little interesting late. But ultimately, LSU was able to seal the deal and get it done. The LSU Tigers went undefeated not only in Omaha, but also in the super regional round. So the last time they lost, if you remember, the last team to beat LSU this year was Little Rock. Think about that. So they can claim, they can go the UCF route, and they can say that they are national champions according to the transitive property. So that's just kind of wild to think that that was the last team to beat this LSU baseball team was Little Rock in the regionals there early on in the postseason. But this now gives the SEC 6 straight College World Series titles. So the trend continues here. As we know, the SEC has absolutely dominated the college baseball world for some time now, and that continued on yesterday with the conference's 6th straight title. You had game one going back to Saturday. If you missed it, we had a multiple just absolutely incredible pitching performances throughout the postseason. Of course, we go back to Gage Wood and his no-hitter for Arkansas and how fantastic that was, and that certainly has to be there at the top. But I think maybe one notch below it would be what Cade Anderson did on Saturday. So Cade Anderson, the LSU ace, he is projected to be the number 1 overall pick in the MLB draft upcoming. So giving some shades of Paul Skeens from a couple years ago when he led LSU to a title. But he was an absolute beast on Saturday. He threw a complete game shutout, threw 130 pitches, just leaving it all out there on the diamond. He struck out 10, did walk 5 guys, and gave up 3 hits, but managed to keep the shutout. LSU scored on an RBI single in the bottom of the first, and that was it. That was it. It was a 1-0 win for LSU. So a very close one there, and that actually snapped Coastal's 26-game winning streak. And so you wondered how they would respond to that, Damian, and it was an interesting response yesterday. So if you missed it, early on in the game yesterday, so Coastal, their back's against the wall, right? They have to win yesterday to set up a potential Game 3 winner-take-all that would have been tonight. And you had a situation in the first inning where there had been a warning apparently had been given to Kevin Schnall, who is the head coach of the Coastal Carolina baseball team. And so, anyways, he was arguing with the umpire about balls and strikes. He felt like he didn't say anything that was over the line, but in the very first inning, you had the head coach, the manager of Coastal Carolina baseball, Kevin Schnall. He gets ejected. Not only that, but Matt Schilling, the first base coach, gets involved, and he also gets tossed from the game. And it was just kind of chaos. And so if we have the audio, Damian, this is Coastal Carolina's head coach, Kevin Schnall. We'll give you, this was his, I guess, perspective on the ejection post-game and what he saw and what he thought he said and all that good stuff. This is Kevin Schnall after the game. Yeah, so there you go. That's Coastal Carolina's coach Kevin Schnall after the game and his perspective on things. And I look, I'll be the first one to say I 100% agree. If that's all you said to an umpire and that's worthy of an ejection,
We have a problem.
well, it was somebody said, "Hey, this is my World Series too, right? This is my
Right.
moment." And it's again, I just in that situation, the final game, I mean, this is I mean, I guess the equivalent of game 6 of the World Series, right? In Major League Baseball. But I mean, this is essentially the final game of the season potentially for this team. You're not going to give the guy a little bit longer leash, understanding that this is it. Like, there's a lot on the line here. Tensions are going to be high on top of the fact of you're really going to throw out the manager of one of the teams in the first inning. The first inning. Look, I get it. There are certain combinations of words that you can't say. You missed 3 is not one of them. The ones that we're talking about, we can't say on the radio right now. So I mean, I feel so bad for him. Again, that's not the reason that Coastal lost the game, but I would have been irate.
Yeah, and you see it a lot, even in the MLB. It's okay. Why do they draw the line on balls and strikes if everybody's strike zone is different? So I feel like everybody should at least have a discussion of like, hey man, and I think the coach handled it rather well. It's like, hey man, you missed 3 of them. Like it's now I didn't know they issued a warning, and then of course when he's talking about the umpire that fell down, it wasn't a bump. Like the coach
he tripped.
He was steadily walking, just wanted an explanation. The other one comes running in, and then he trips back, and it's like, I didn't know. Like, you get caught up in the moment. It's like, I didn't bump him. He just, he, like you said, he fell down and got embarrassed. And if those are like you said, if those are what's going to start warranting ejections in the biggest game of college baseball, then we definitely need to have a sit down and have a conversation with some umpires. Like, hey, like, you can't be behind the plate and have that thin of skin.
Exactly. Yeah, you have to understand. Look, if you don't have what it takes to be a college umpire and give a fair shake to both sides, then I'm sure there's plenty of other people out there that would love the opportunity to be in Omaha and calling that game. So, yeah, it was embarrassing for college baseball. It was, there's no room for that. That umpire should be embarrassed. They owe Kevin Schnall a public apology, in my opinion. And like you said, I mean, it was, for me, I thought it was hilarious watching the guy fall down. And like you heard the coach say, it's like, it's not, I'm not responsible for another grown man's athleticism or lack thereof. Like, you're not. And you could just tell that was one of those moments where they were like, this is our opportunity almost. Like, they were so fired up about that interaction, and it was such a minor thing at the beginning of the game. And unfortunately, that was, going to stick in people's minds. But LSU would go on. They scored 4 runs in the top of the 4th inning. They were able to chase Coastal Carolina's ace, Jacob Morrison, after just 3 2/3. He had given up 5 earned runs on the day. He had an ERA around 2 on the season. He had been one of the best pitchers this entire postseason. Anthony Ianson, he goes 6 1/3 for LSU. Only gives up 3 runs and struck out 9 yesterday. Coastal did come back. They made they hit a 2-run bomb in the 7th inning to make it 5-3, which made it a little bit more interesting. But after that happened, Chase Shores came in, the lanky dude that throws like 103 for LSU, just an absolute hoss. He came in 2 2/3 shutout innings for LSU yesterday, struck out 4 to seal the 5-3 victory there for LSU. Cade Anderson, as I mentioned, threw a complete game shutout in game 1. He ultimately is named the most outstanding player there in Omaha, so very much deserved there. But quickly, this was there is a lot that goes on with this title for LSU. It was so now if we go back and look at LSU, and I think they make a very strong argument to at least of the modern era being the best baseball program in the entire country, not only in the SEC, but the entire country. And I understand. So LSU now has 8 titles. That's second most all time behind USC. And so I think there's a lot of people that would still tell you USC is probably the best. And if you want to argue that because they have the most titles, that's certainly fair. But they haven't won a title in 27 years. LSU has won in that same time period 6 of their 8 titles. So when you look at, I guess, again, more old school USC, but LSU, they won all 8 of their championships since the 1990s. Like, that's absolutely incredible the run that they've been on, because you had Skip Bertman. He won 5 titles between 1991 and 2000. Then Paul Maneri won in 2009, and now Jay Johnson has won 2 of the last 3 years for LSU. They become the first program to win multiple championships in 3 different decades, being the 1990s, 2000s, and 2020s. And now Jay Johnson is the fastest head coach to win multiple titles at the same school. He's done it in 4 seasons at the helm there in Baton Rouge. The second fastest is 8 seasons. So absolutely remarkable. And as I said, they have the second most College World Series titles of all time, behind only the USC Trojans. But something quickly that's also just as important as LSU getting the win on the field, of course, is getting the win at Rocco's, as they did that as well. So a big weekend for LSU. They win the College World Series title, and they also win the Rocco's Jello Shot Challenge with 52,390 Jello shots. No other school even got to 10,000. So they
You're there for business. It was a business trip for everybody in Baton Rouge.
I was about to say, I like how, in college football season, people always argue, oh, well, this school got in because of the TV ratings, blah, blah, blah. Well, now LSU's just going to they're going to get an automatic bye to Omaha every year because they're going to keep Rocco's in business single-handedly every year. So congratulations to the LSU Bengal Tigers. This now, going back to 2019, you've won a national championship in football, men's outdoor track, women's basketball, baseball twice, and gymnastics. So not a bad stretch there for the LSU Bengal Tigers. But we did have another champion crowned last night, this time in the NBA. What happened last night? Game 7, the first Game 7 in nearly a decade. We'll tell you what happened and who is the new champion of the NBA next on Morning Jox. Welcome back in Monday morning edition of Morning Jocks here. Conrad and Damien with you until 7 o'clock. Recapping LSU's 8th College World Series titles. They take down Coastal Carolina in 2 games, 5-3. So unfortunately for Coastal, they go in on a 26-game winning streak and they end the season on a 2-game losing streak, as LSU brings another championship back to the SEC. We did have another champion crowned last night. But first, a question I want to just kind of throw out there, and we can get into it throughout the show. But with LSU and their win yesterday, would you say, and you don't have to give me an answer right now, Damon, you can kind of brew on this for a little bit, but would you say that LSU overall has the best athletic department in the SEC? I think there's a number of programs that you could consider. There's a number of schools that, and there's a lot of great ones, right? I don't think there's necessarily a wrong answer, unless, you say like Kentucky or something. But other than that, I think there's LSU would certainly make a very strong case for it. I think LSU, Florida, Texas, I think you would throw Alabama and Auburn in there as well. I think all of those would be strong contenders. But I think LSU certainly is has a pretty good argument for it. You could look at Florida. Well, they won men's basketball. Football's kind of coming back. Baseball's been fairly steady. I know they had a rocky start this year, but it ended up being pretty good. Softball's good. Same thing for Texas. Football's good. Basketball, they're coming along. Baseball's good.
Yeah.
Softball's really good. Gymnastics or volleyball's really good. Track and field.
That's a very good question, Conrad.
So we can just kind of, you can brew on that. And if you want to weigh in 205-834-9450, we'll get to the text line later and get some of your thoughts. But yeah, we can just kind of think on that throughout the show. But I think it's an interesting question. Who would you consider the best athletic department right now in the Southeastern Conference? But there's no question who the best team is in the National Basketball Association, because that would be undoubtedly the Oklahoma City Thunder, as they took on the Indiana Pacers last night in Game 7. First time we've gotten a Game 7 since 2016. If you remember that awesome NBA Finals when the Cleveland Cavaliers, came back and beat the Golden State Warriors in 7 games. That was the Golden State team that won 73 games. They were the best team of all time until LeBron James and the Cleveland Cavaliers came in. So expectations were high that this would maybe match that or be close to that last Game 7 that we got. And unfortunately, it wasn't. It was a very good game for the first half. Indiana was actually up 48-47, but you felt early on, and it was impressive that they held on as long as they could. But when Tyrese Halliburton went out early in the first quarter with a Achilles injury, which is, I thought it was a calf, right? Because that's what he had been dealing with. And then you find out, oh, man, it's way worse than that. It's an Achilles. It was awful, man, watching him on the ground. He was in a ton of pain, and you could just tell that he was absolutely devastated. I mean, you work your entire life, Game 7 of the NBA Finals, and you tear your Achilles in the first quarter. So Indiana, they held it together, though, for the first half, had a 1-point lead. But then Oklahoma City came out and flexed their muscle in the third quarter, went up 34-20 in the third quarter to outscore the Pacers and get a 13-point lead going into the final set. And that was all she wrote at that point. So Indiana kind of able to make it a little interesting late, get it within a dozen or so. And I think they got it down to 10 at one point. But ultimately, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, too much to handle. He had 29 points last night to go along with 12 assists to lead the Oklahoma City Thunder to their first ever NBA title. The Supersonics, they won in 1979. But since they moved to Oklahoma City, Kevin Durant couldn't do it. Russ couldn't do it. James Harden couldn't do it. But Shai can do it. So he gets the first title for them. And how about this, Damian? Not only is he named in Finals MVP, but he has now won the scoring title, the regular season MVP, Conference Finals MVP, and Finals MVP, and the championship to go along with it. So a heck of a year for the Thunder.
Yeah, and I mean, for a lot of people that haven't watched NBA basketball, man, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, at least for the past, I even say 2 years, has really put himself in a different stratosphere when it came to just hooping. And if you watched, yesterday, just how smooth he is, and he never looks like he's in a rush. He just goes out there and hoops, and he puts the team on his shoulders, and the team responds to him. And I think what he's been able to do for OKC has just been, phenomenal. Because all season long, he's carried the load, and then when this team needed him the most, he's continued to show up game after game after game. Jalen Williams being a great number 2 option as well. You had Chet Holmgren. Like, the youth that they have on their team, they can build this thing for a long time. Now, is that going to be – it's going to be like a decade-long run? Who knows? But the pieces that they have, when Alex Caruso, who's only, 26, 27, is the old man on your roster, you're building this thing up for the long haul. But I think that what the OKC Thunder did last night, man, just overcoming – again, Indiana played about as good as you possibly could without your superstar being on the floor for you. And it's just that run in the third quarter. T.J. McConnell for Indiana was trying his best. He had 14 points in the third quarter.
Yep.
He was doing it by himself. But what OKC was able to do, just right when they needed the most, SJ would go down, hit a shot, and it was all she wrote there in the fourth quarter. They started to cruise, and turnovers too. Turnovers killed Indiana as well. But all in all, it was a great season. And for Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, when he sits down and starts to renegotiate the contract, he can essentially write a blank check and just say, whatever number I put on this check is what I need and what I want.
Yeah, he's gonna be taken care of for a long time. But yeah, as you mentioned, 21 turnovers for Indiana last night compared to 7 for OKC. So that ultimately that'll get you. No doubt about it. But yeah, Oklahoma City, the best team all season long. They won 68 games in the regular season, one of the best regular seasons ever. And now certainly with this win, I understand some people look, oh, well, you didn't have to face the Celtics, who are the defending champions, or anybody in the finals. But certainly, I know it's Oklahoma City, but one of the best teams, one of the best seasons that we've ever seen in the history of the NBA, just based on how many games they won and being taken to the brink. They went to Game 7 against the Nuggets earlier in the postseason and were able to get out of that, and now found themselves in a Game 7 in the NBA Finals. And when it mattered most, their guys stepped up, and they now find themselves as champions. And as Damian said, they figured to be a major factor in the league for a number of years because of how young they are. And they remind me a lot, minus the cheating, because they don't cheat as far as we know. But they just remind me a lot of the Houston Astros from a handful of years ago, where you went from being the laughing stock of the league and you were absolutely horrible, but you had stockpiled all this young talent, and now it's finally started to pay off, and finally that development has come to fruition with guys like Shai and Jalen Williams and Chet Holmgren, and there's the young core that they have. It's really awesome to see, and don't think this is the last time that you're going to see them hoisting up a championship trophy there. So Oklahoma City, they win Game 7, 103-91, and they now are champions of the NBA. But quickly, we did have some other really big news in the NBA yesterday that came out right before Game 7, and that is that Kevin Durant has been traded yet again. So we knew that this was most likely going to happen. It was going to be either the Heat, the Spurs, or the Rockets, and ultimately the Houston Rockets get the job done. So the Houston Rockets are trading Jalen Green, Dylan Brooks, the number 20 overall pick in this year's draft, and then a collection of 5 future second-round picks in exchange for Kevin Durant. So KD averaged 26 points, 6 rebounds, and 4 assists last year for the Phoenix Suns. He will be 37 when this season starts. So giving up a lot for one guy who, make no mistake, one of the greatest to ever do it, but that's giving up a lot from a Houston team that is very young, or was very young, and they took the Warriors to 7 games in the playoffs this year. They look like they were about to be one of those kind of franchises that was about to have a big breakthrough. And, they're hoping that KD's the guy to get that done, but gave up 8 guys for one guy. So,
yeah. And, he's on the backstretch too. So it's
about saying he's had injury problems.
Right.
And he's, he played 62 games this year, but probably want somebody to play 75 or so, but.
Right. And, you gave up Jalen Green, Dylan Brooks, and a bunch of, picks. If you're Phoenix, one, you've kind of looked – no disrespect to Devin Booker, but, you're trending towards that Damian Lillard career path. It's –
oh, yeah, they botched this. They were in the NBA Finals, 3 years ago, 4 years ago? Yeah.
And now you're in the boat where, I mean, Bradley Beal's got a no trade clause, and then you're bringing in Jalen Green, and you're kind of sitting there as a 28, 29-year-old, like, is this just going to how my career's going to go the rest of this way?
Yeah, it's been unfortunate. Hey, at least he got to date Kylie Jenner though. That
Absolutely.
was probably
There's always,
or Kendall,
yeah.
whichever one it was. But I'm sure that was fun for him.
But he's a gold medalist, though. He went to he represented the U.S. in the Olympics.
And his bank account is quite large as well.
That is
so
true.
I think he will. I think he'll be okay. But yeah, that's the big news as well. KD, he is now on the Houston Rockets. So for many of you out there, one time you check out an NBA game next year and you're like, wait, why is KD on the Houston Rockets? You can remember that we told you that here on Morning Jox. All right, well, that's the weekend of champions. LSU wins a College World Series title. The Oklahoma City Thunder win an NBA championship. How about a little bit of college football news, because it was the final weekend for official visits for both Alabama and Auburn, and some big things on the way. Some good news, some bad news. We'll give it all to you next here on Jox. 6:35 Morning Jocks here on your Monday. Appreciate you tuning in. Conrad and Damian here with you, breaking down a couple of champions crowned over the weekend in the LSU Tigers baseball team, as well as the Oklahoma City there in the NBA. So congrats to all the champions from over the weekend. But we did also have a big recruiting weekend that we're going to tell you about here in just a minute. But also over the weekend, quickly, you had the Atlanta Braves. So they were fresh off their sweep of the New York Mets, Damian. People were starting. Landrum was smiling. He was buying in. I
did see that.
I
noticed.
He 100% believed, all right, we have turned the corner. The Atlanta Braves are about to go on a run and march their way to October and another World Series crown. But unfortunately, they had to get through the Miami Marlins first, and the Miami Marlins didn't take too kindly to that. So the Braves sweep the Mets and then lose 2 of 3 to the Marlins.
Yeah.
So explain that to a Braves fan.
I couldn't tell you. I couldn't tell you. That's one of those. I don't know. I honestly don't know. I don't know what to tell them because again, you're riding high. Got the brooms out, and then you again. Not to say you're overlooking an opponent, but come on, man. It's the Marlins. Come on, man. It's the Marlins. It's like, come on. What are we doing?
It's remarkable. I forgot exactly what it is. I think it's something like 26-10 is the Braves' record against the Mets over the last few seasons. I mean, they're incredible when they play the Mets. And then you go and play a lowly Marlins team and who is in last place in the division, and you can only muster 1 win. So you did get a 7-0 win on Saturday, but that's sandwiched in between a pair of losses there to the Marlins. So now the Braves find themselves 11 games back in the National League East, which is certainly not where you want to be. And as far as the wild card goes, you are 7 games back. So going in the wrong direction over the weekend there for the Atlanta Braves. But the good news for you is that you do get to play the Mets again because you're now traveling to New York to play the Mets. So that game, or the first game of that set, will take place tonight at 6:10. That'll be the first pitch. You can hear it right here on Jox 94.5 following Paul Feinbaum. So that's just kind of an interesting, hopefully you can get another sweep here. It's a 4-game series against the Mets, so a good opportunity to pick up some ground as they've been struggling lately. Lost to the Phillies. So now the Phillies actually are in first place in the division, but a big opportunity here for the Braves against the Mets, a team that they play very, very well against.
So it's a get-right series. That's what you're saying.
Yeah, against one of the best teams in Major League Baseball. So it's just kind of funny how that works. I know that's probably a little painful if you're a Braves fan, but it is what it is. So that coming up 6:10 first pitch here on Jox. All right, we did have, as I mentioned, some big recruiting news coming out over the weekend. So it's the final weekend for official visits. There's a lot of big-time commitments coming up here in the next 2 weeks or so. Very end of June, very early July is where a lot of these guys are looking to make their announcements. But again, until they actually sign the pieces of paper at the end of the year, it doesn't really matter. But we can still get excited and we can talk about, it's fun to see what's out there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Even if you may, not be rooting for them in the fall because they're wearing different colors. But we'll start off with the Auburn Tigers. So they didn't have quite as much news going on this weekend. The big news, and unfortunate for Auburn, is that you actually lost a commitment and 4-star linebacker Shadarius Tootle. So he announced that he was flipping his commitment from Auburn to Georgia over the weekend. He's a 6'3", 230-pound linebacker from Mobile, and he had been committed to Auburn since last July. So almost an entire year that he had been committed to the Tigers, but he ultimately flips to Georgia here kind of in the final days leading up to his final commitment. So some big news there for Auburn. But on the good side, you did get a projection for some of the guys that were on campus, and one of those was Jaquez Wilkes. He is a top 100 prospect in the upcoming class. He's ranked as the number 6 overall player here in the state of Alabama out of Wadley High School, but he's a 4-star edge rusher, and the projections are now that he will land with the Auburn Tigers. So you lose a guy in Shadarius Tootle. Looks like you're going to add another there in Jaquez Wilkes. So that's what's going on with the Auburn Tigers. I know they had some other people on campus, but that was really kind of the big, the actual news coming out for both Auburn. And now for Alabama, you did get a commitment over the weekend, and 3-star defensive lineman J.J. Finch. He is from Indianapolis, and he committed to Alabama over Michigan and Damian's favorite team, the Tennessee Volunteers. So he's a 6'2", 270-pound defensive lineman. Again, he's a 3-star guy, so a lot of people are going to, yawn, whatever. But it's another name there for Alabama in the upcoming class. You also had a 4-star offensive lineman, Chris Booker, out of Atlanta. So he's been verbally committed to the Tide, but he announced and made it clear yesterday that he is officially shutting down his recruitment. He's not taking any more visits, and he is locked in with the Alabama Crimson Tide.
There we go.
I mean, I'll take his word for it, but again, you never say never with these kids. But hey, he's making it known that at least right now,
he's rolling with the Tide.
Yeah, until somebody comes in with a few more zeros or something on the end of a check, and that sways his opinion. But for now, he's going to be a member of the Alabama Crimson Tide. But they did have a few 3-stars on campus this weekend, and pretty cool. I don't know if you saw the pictures, Damian, but a familiar face around campus to help out with recruiting a little bit. The old ball coach. Well, now someone's already called that. We can't call him that. Sorry, the GOAT, Nick Saban. He was hanging around campus because if you saw, it's a really sad story. I know we haven't really touched on it, but I'm sure many of you heard. But unfortunately, a few weeks ago, Keelan Russell's sister passed away there in Tuscaloosa. And so Kalen DeBoer, Nick Sheridan, some other members of the staff. I saw Ty Simpson and Austin Mack. So a good contingent of players and coaches were actually in. I believe it was in Tupelo this weekend for the funeral for Keelan Russell's sister. So a really, really sad story there. But they were out supporting their new quarterback, being good teammates, being good coaches. And so Nick Saban kind of stepped in Tuscaloosa and handled a lot of the recruiting visits and some of those conversations this weekend with the likes of Xavier Crowell, Cedarian Morgan, and Anthony Jones, who are all 5-star kids from here in Alabama. The Crimson Tide are hoping to land. So that was your big recruiting news for both Alabama and Auburn over the weekend. And, I can't believe I almost forgot this. I don't know if you saw this too. Lane Kiffin's kid there in Tuscaloosa.
Was.
Spinning it a little bit. He's a, crazy to say this, he's a 2028 recruit. So, I mean, we got some time, but not that much time.
They grow up fast.
Yes, they certainly do. So it's just... it's just crazy now. It's like, all right, so we've got Peyton Manning's nephew. We've got Phillip Rivers, like the first of his 12 kids that's coming out next year. And now you're going to have, Lane Kiffin's son. So it makes you feel old when you see people like this growing up. So that's the recruiting news from over the weekend. But we posed a question earlier in the show, and I wanted to have a little more in-depth conversation about it on the other side with Damian and you as well. And that was with LSU winning their second college baseball World Series title in the last 3 seasons. You add in what they did in football back in 2019, women's basketball, gymnastics, all the sports. Is LSU the best athletic department in the SEC right now? Want to get your thoughts, 205-834-9450. Who do you think has the best athletic department in the SEC? We'll share some of our picks. We'll get your reaction as well. That's all next on Morning Jox. Appreciate you tuning in to Morning Jocks here on your Monday morning. Conrad and Damian here with you, trying to answer the question of which athletic department in the SEC is the most dominant right now. Not talking about the history, but just right now as it stands, June the 23rd, 2025, fresh off the heels of LSU's second College World Series title in the last 3 seasons. Where would you rank LSU amongst the SEC athletic departments? Some of you chiming in on the phone lines as well as the text lines, 205-834-9450. That'll get you on the courtesy GMC text line. We'll go there in just a second. But quickly, Damian, for you, if you just had to go right now, and it might be splitting hairs here. You might have two that you're kind of debating back and forth between, but who would you say, in your opinion, is the premier athletic department in the Southeastern Conference?
There's kind of 3. It's difficult because I'm looking at football, basketball, baseball, softball, and then like those other sports where
your track and field, your swimming and diving.
Right. When you look at the whole thing, but their main ones are having success. And the first one that popped in my head was LSU. And Ole Miss and Tennessee, like those 3, it's kind of, all right, well, you look at their whole the whole program, especially when it comes to, how successful have they been in, I'd say, in the past 5 or so years. Like we've seen Ole Miss win a national championship in baseball. We've seen football have multiple 10-win seasons. Now they haven't won an SEC championship, but they're still they're consistently in the conversation. Tennessee, I mean, football has now gotten back up to where they have been consistently. And then baseball, of course, we've seen the past 2 seasons where they've been, past 3 seasons at least, they've been in the conversation in Omaha. Like they've been one of the better teams within the conference. Basketball, granted, we all, we poke fun at Rick Barnes, but he consistently keeps them in a tournament. Now, how much success do they have? It is what it is, but we've seen it they've at least made an Elite 8. Alabama is in that conversation too. I think
I think LSU, Texas, Tennessee, Florida are probably all ahead of them though.
Right, and that's what I was looking at too. With Florida, of course, winning basketball, the NCAA tournament in basketball. We know what they've done in softball and baseball over the past couple seasons, and football is getting back to that level. But those are kind of, if I had to say one that is the number one, I'd probably say LSU. But basketball takes such a big gut punch.
It does.
But they have so much success in the other ones where it's kind of, if there's one that's going to hold us back a little bit, it's basketball.
Well, and see, that's the kind of the thing with all of them, right? Because with Texas, I would say the same thing, like men's basketball. Granted, they've been good. They've been better than LSU, but that's like maybe the sport that you would say is lagging behind right now. I think for Florida, you would say football maybe has been lagging behind for the last few years. But now it looks like that's about to improve. I think for LSU, it'd be basketball. It's just, it's tough because everyone's going to have, 1 or 2 blind spots, right, when it comes to athletic programs. But I think LSU certainly has a strong case. I'll say this, if Texas wins the national championship in football, I don't think there's any doubt that it's Texas right now. And I don't like saying that because they're the new kids on the block still, and we have to admit that, and they're money bags over there in Austin, but you look at what they do in swimming and diving, track and field, what they just did in softball.
Right.
Really good baseball program. Basketball, they made the NCAA tournament. And then football clearly has an argument as being the best football program right now in the SEC, or at least in the top 2. So it's we're kind of splitting hairs here on this one, but I think it's an interesting conversation to have. And so let's go to somebody who I think we all know what his answer is going to be. But let's go to Pelham Gator. He's on the phone line this morning. How we doing, PG?
Oh, doing great. Good. Got him ready for some football now. Right around the corner. Got some good recruiting going on, so we're looking good in that field. Yeah, we're coming back in football. Hey, I got to say, guys, it's not even close. Hands down, the Gators have had 261 SEC championships. Nobody's even close. Tennessee's second, and they're way behind. We just track and field. We've kicked butt a lot in that, and national championships recently. We've also done just basketball, volleyball. We own volleyball. Baseball is back. It's been up. It's up. A little bit down this year. But I mean, Lord Almighty. I mean, there's not even anybody close in the SEC to our program. I mean, it's been awarded can you imagine 261 SEC championships?
That's a
and
lot.
That's all sports trophies. We won more than anybody's ever won. It used to be the Bernie Moore Trophy, but there's no way. LSU's hot right now. Yeah, we were second in Texas this year in track. But, I mean, swimming, we've owned swimming, golf. I mean, goodness gracious. I mean, y'all need to say King Florida. We've always ruled the SEC in all sports, except for football. I had to get you guys. I couldn't take it.
Hey, no, you're all
dog.
Yeah, no, you're all good, PG. Appreciate you calling in this morning. And yeah, I mean, I certainly, if we're going back and looking at the totality of it, yeah, Florida certainly has they have like PG said, there's a pretty big gap there. But I think for right now, if we're just looking at again the last year, maybe 2 or 3 years, I think that, that's where maybe Florida would take a step back to the LSUs and Texas of the world. But, I mean, again, Florida's not a wrong answer in this question.
Right.
They're all, it's just kind of what maybe do you value more from your athletic department. But let's go to the text line real quick. Let's see what some of you have to say. So Jamie chimes in. He says, Alabama has the best, then Florida, and then LSU. Look, I would love to sit here and tell you that Alabama has the best athletic department in the conference, and they have a very, very good athletic department. Don't get me wrong. It's fantastic. But I think it's fair. You took a step back in football last year. Your basketball program, I would say, is elite. I would say your football program is still elite, but you took a step back. Baseball is on the come up. Softball's taken a little bit of a dive here recently. And you don't have those other – your swimming and diving, your track and field. You do have golf. You've been very good at golf, just like Auburn. But, yeah, I think Florida and LSU would certainly have to be over Alabama, and I would say probably Texas and Tennessee as well. But everyone is entitled to their own opinion. There's nothing wrong with that. Fanboy chimes in. He says, depends on how far you go back in all the sports, but he would say that Florida and Alabama have the two best, I guess, historically speaking, athletic departments. Can't argue with that. And then Bobby, he chimes in. He said, yeah, I would say LSU has the best athletics department in the country, especially if you look at how many championships have been won across multiple sports over the last few years. So appreciate y'all chiming in there. We had a fun conversation this morning. Crowned a couple of champions. Got to get a little bit into SEC. And as PG said, college football's right around the corner. So we're going to be back tomorrow at 6 a.m.